All right, so we'll call this Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. Just before we get started, I'm just going to go through tonight's protocols. And for committee members, I have a little extra tidbit for us at the end with regards to motions and so on and so forth. So I'll touch on that a little bit when we get to the end. Before we get to the meeting tonight, we have 8 applications that we'll be hearing tonight that involve 5 different properties. And that notices of motion have been circulated to neighboring properties, so with regards to those. So the first order of business will be to ask any committee members if they have any conflicts of interest with any of the applications this evening. Following that, a request will be made for any deferrals or withdrawals of applications. In this particular case, what we'll do is, as we get to each one, we will just confirm by bringing in the applicant to the start, and if they have any objections or withdrawals that they wish at that time, they can bring forward. Following that, the committee secretary treasurer will read out each application on the agenda with a brief description and staff recommendation, as well as a summation of any additional correspondence that's been received from the time of preparing the staff report. We are going to be doing a couple of these together as they're all related to the same property, but he'll cover that when we get to those particular ones. Following that, the applicant or the agent for the applicant will be brought into the meeting, asked to introduce themselves, and at that point in time they can add any additional comments that they have with regards to the application. Following that, members of the committee will then have the opportunity to ask the applicant any questions that they might have. And then we will go to any public members that have registered to sign in. I know on the first application we have a few for that purpose, so we will bring them in at that time, one at a time. We'll ask that they present any questions or comments that they have one at a time with about a 10-minute time limit, and ask them to present all their questions and comments within that time limit. Following all comments being presented, the applicant will be offered some closing comments if they desire. The committee will then present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If there is a tie, a motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made. And we will continue to do that until we have an acceptable resolution and decision. Now, with that being said, the slight change that we're going to try to introduce tonight, since the staff report and the Secretary Treasurer is going to read the staff recommendations along with the usually the 4 tests or what the recommendation is, which is very similar to the way we present our motions. We've done a little research and we've determined that we only need to, when you go to move an application, you just need to reference the application, the address, and just reference the staff's report and their recommendations, and add any additional comments, conditions, and so on that you'd like to add as part of your motion. Then we'll get a seconder, and then we can discuss that particular motion at that time. So we'll try to shorten things up. It just seemed like we were reading the same things over and over again all the time. So hopefully that will speed things along a little bit. I would also like to note that notices of decision will only be provided to those persons that have left their name and addresses with the Secretary Treasurer and the Planning Division. There is an email address. You can contact David Schultz at planner@portcolborne.ca or call and leave a voice message at 905-835-2901 extension 202 immediately following the meeting or tomorrow to register and get copies of those notices of decision. It should also be noted that in order to be advised of any possible local planning appeal tribunal hearings, you must request and be sent a copy of the decision of the committee. So with that being said, I will ask if there's any conflicts of interest this evening from any of the members. Not seeing anything. I will note that we are missing Donna this evening at present. If she does come in, we will ask her at that time if she has any conflicts as well. So seeing that, I don't know if there's any official requests or deferrals through staff this evening. Not seeing any there. So with that then, Mr. Secretary Treasurer, the first application, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first application is B07-20-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13, Section 53.1. and in the matter of the property legally known as part of Lot 31, Concession 2 on the former township of Humberstone, now the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 599 Main Street West. And in the matter of an application by the agent Stephen Rivers for the owner 2493207 Ontario Inc. for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 3 with a total lot area of 2.149 hectares for future commercial use. Part 1 will retain a lot frontage of 147.04 meters on Main Street West, with a total lot area of 0.86 hectares for continued commercial use. This application is also seeking to establish a blanket easement in perpetuity over Parts 1 and 3 to the mutual benefit of both parts of the ingress and egress of vehicles and pedestrians, parking, utilities, including but not limited to hydro, gas, water, telecommunications, garbage, and required maintenance. The purpose of the easement is to allow for the two properties to function as one without restriction or interruption. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offered the following comments. Notice was circulated for public comments. Notice was circulated on November 23rd, and written correspondence has been received and circulated from a Mr. Newton Wong, who is also here tonight as one of the delegates, so I will let him speak towards his comments. For agency comments, notice was circulated on November 23rd, and the following correspondence has been received. So from the region here, the Regional Planning and Development Services staff offers no objection to the proposed consent application subject to the conditions of approval, which I will outline near the end. And that would be it for the fire department. That's none? Yep. Okay. And planning staff recommends consent application B07-20-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. That a drainage apportionment agreement be completed by the city's drainage superintendent or by an approved engineer at the cost of the applicant. Should the Eagle Marsh drain report not be finalized prior to the certification of consent, the necessity of the drainage apportionment agreement shall be determined by the drainage superintendent. 2, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of Bylaw 4748-130-05, which requires the collection of the parkland dedication at the time of the building permit application based on the value of the property of the day before the issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any future purchasers of this requirement. 3, that the applicant provides the Secretary-Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registrable legal description of the subject parcel together with a copy of the deposited reference plan in both paper and electronic format, if applicable for use in the issuance of a certificate of consent. 4, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary-Treasurer. For the following reasons: 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 51-24 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13.
All right, thank you. Can we bring in?
Just realized I missed the 2 conditions. The one, there was a revised recommendation for that one. And another condition is that the zoning bylaw amendment that's also concurrent with this application is required to be approved.
Okay.
You want to?
You have the memo there?
Yeah.
Just read that in as well.
Which one is it? So I don't read the thing. It's the number 1. Sorry, we just have an extra condition here that I'm going to read out. That the owner dedicate any regular road widening along the subject property frontage of Regional Road 3, Main Street West, in order to achieve 17.35 meters from the center line of the regional road allowance. The widening is to be granted to the satisfaction of the Niagara Region Planning and Development Services Department, All costs for providing the necessary survey plan and all related documents are the responsibility of the applicant.
This is the planner speaking. I'm just clarifying that there was also a condition to be included for a zoning bylaw amendment on Part 3 of the property to recognize the lot frontage requirements under the zoning bylaw. The applicant will be able to speak further on that, and that is also a concurrent application with this.
All right, thank you. Can we bring in the, oh, Donna just arrived. Just before we bring in the applicant, Donna, you can hear us all right?
Yes, I can. Actually, I've been able to hear you and see you. I just couldn't get in. Thank you.
Okay. And you don't have any conflicts with any of the applications this evening?
No, I don't.
Thank you. So, David, if we could bring in the applicant. Mr. Rivers, can you hear and see us? I think your mic's on mute. Mr. Rivers, I think your mic is on mute. Oh.
How's that?
There we go, that's better.
There.
For most guy like me, it takes a while to figure out this new technology.
Yeah. Just before we get started, I'm assuming you don't want to withdraw the application this evening?
No, Chairman, we do not.
All right, I will turn the floor to you then, sir.
Very nice to virtually together with you all. Basically, we support the recommendation of the planning department. We've gone through a considerable amount of review and analysis on this project to bring it forward. It's not something that is new to council or new to the city. The city has approved a site plan control agreement with regards to this property, which is illustrated in the C of A agenda as in the showing the layout or the layout of the proposed development. What this severance application does is allow the part 3 of the property, the part that was always meant to be developed, to move ahead because of the requirements for stormwater management, and particularly stormwater management in this location of the storm pond. The property or part 3 doesn't have frontage, so the purpose of the upcoming zoning bylaw amendment application and the public hearing for that is to recognize the intent that the city has always had for the development of this property, and to deal with the shortcomings, if you will, of the particular part 3 in relation to frontage and setbacks for front lot line. They're all very technical changes, and really has no significant impact on the uses that the city has been aware of for some time. Other than that, I'm willing to or quite happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Do any members have any questions of the applicant at this time? Not seeing any. So with that, I will turn it over to outside comments. I've been advised there's 4 people that have registered that wish to speak to this. I'll go to the first one, and is Wong, sorry? Jordan Wong, sorry. Is he there? Okay, looks like we've lost him at this point, so we'll go to the next one I have is Lisa Saint Amand. he's back. Who are we going to go to first, Jordan or? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Lisa, we'll get to you in a second since Jordan come back on. Your mic is muted, so if you can unmute your mic.
Jorgen has advised that he's having technical difficulties, so we will we'll move on to the next applicant, and then not applicant, delegate, and then we will allow Jorgen to speak later.
All right, so Lisa, you're up again. There we go, Lisa. I don't know if you can hear us. It shows that your mic is still muted, so you just have to unmute your mic. Lisa, can you hear us? Just got to unmute your mic. More technical difficulties. Oh, did you kick her out or did she? Is Terry separate?
We will move on to the third delegate, and then we'll come back to the other two if necessary.
So is Terry, I'm assuming he's separate? So Terry St. Amand I have as our third delegate that wishes to speak to this. And again, I see on the screen, but I just need to unmute your mic. Oh, get closer.
How's that?
There we go, we can hear you. You're good to go, Terry.
Well, I don't have much to say, although I'm the adjacent property owner. I just want to hear what they're going to present, and then we'll have some comments after that. That's okay.
Actually, if you have any comments, you need to present them now with any concerns that you have. It's not like an open discussion necessarily. You're allotted a time frame to present anything that you wish to present at this time.
Well, at this point in time, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the last one we have is, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Newton Wong, there we go. Gary, did you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to ask Terry if he is the registered owner of the property or is he a tenant in the building?
Can you bring Terry back in? Sorry, we just got to bring Terry back into the meeting. And Terry, your microphone's still muted.
About that?
There we go. Did you hear Gary's question?
Yes, I did. And yes, I am the registered owner of the property at 45 to 53 West Main Street, which is the plaza that has no frills and all the particular ones there, the dollar store and that sort of thing, and the pet value. I'm the owner. I'm the registered owner of that through my company, 1650661 Ontario, Inc.
Gary, you had another question?
No, I apologize. I was thinking of the Harvey Swiss Chalet. So thank you, Terry. I did know that you owned across the road. Thank you.
Well, that's where we're moving to, is across the road.
Right. I guess for tonight, I was just wondering about the Harveys, but that's fine. You explained it.
That's owned by the people that are, I believe, are part of the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks.
The spokesman for them is Bobby Louie.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So if we can bring in, Newton. Newton for us, please. Newton, you just got to unmute your microphone for us. Tough day for technology. There we go.
Hi, thank you. Excuse my delay in trying to
No
get
problem.
this all done. I'm technologically just learning on this stuff. So we're the solicitors for the Harveys, for the owners of the land that owns like the Harvey store, and we're directly to the, I believe, to the east of the adjacent property under Severance. And what I did was, and I wish to thank Chris Froome, who's really been helpful through this matter. And we sent a response letter to the committee members yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to get it over because there were some issues with the email, and we faxed it over. I'm not sure if the members and the chair haven't had an opportunity to look at it.
I have, and I would assume the other committee members have
If not,
as well.
I can sort of.
They're all shaking their head yes, so I think we should be good. Newton, you still there? Technology is great when it works. Is he still connected? He's still showing on my screen as connected, but oh, now he's gone. What about Jorgen? Is he back? All right, we're going to try to jump to Jorgen.
Jorgen says he won't speak for this application in the chat, but maybe we'll bring him in one more time to see if he
Yes.
would like to.
Could they also call in to submit a little feedback?
Is there a call into the Zoom that they can call into?
I've never done it, so I don't know how it works, but there's a phone number at the bottom of the link I sent them.
Okay. So he says he doesn't want to speak to the application? Okay, so we'll give Newton another second here to reconnect. Okay, maybe we can try going to Lisa then. Lisa, can you hear us? Your microphone is on mute. Still can't hear you, Lisa, if you're trying to...
Lisa has mentioned in the chat that she has no comment at this time.
Okay, very good. So with that, unless we can get back to Newton. Did he log back in? You can. What we'll do is we'll take a brief recess, and we'll try to get Newton back on the line, because he did have a fairly significant correspondence that he provided. So we'll just we'll give it a 5-minute recess, and we'll see if we can connect again with them. Eric, you got a question?
Mr. Chair, maybe in the sake of time, could we maybe potentially adjourn this matter and then deal with another application and then go back to it?
We could do that as well if everyone's good with that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll ask for a quick motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chair, could I just interrupt? I see
Gary.
Mr. Ritesh and Mr. Green are now available. Did we just want to go out of order? That's what he said.
Sorry. Okay. So just sorry for a second, Gary. Did you say Newton made it back in? Okay, so I think we have Newton back in, so maybe if we can get him in this time, then we can proceed. Newton, if you're there, your microphone's still on mute. There we go.
Thank you. Apologies. It just seemed the Zoom just restarted for no reason in the middle of my thing. I apologize to the chair and the committee member. If it's okay, I'd like to continue my submissions.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So during the construction, there was a lot of issues. There's a fence that separated the two properties, 599, 575, from the road right to the back. And what the applicant did was tear down the front portion of the fence and used it as an ingress and egress. And you know, they said we just need it during construction, and then there's no issues. And they've undertaken to put the fence back, and the correspondence that's attached to my letter of today or yesterday has the correspondence and the undertaking from the construction individuals saying they would put the fence back. So instead of doing that after construction, they've actually made it sort of like a right of way from our client's property going into the gas station. And we noticed that we spoke with the tenant who owns the Harveys, and she indicated there's been so many close accidents because there's a fence, the existing fence is right up to where the entrance is. And there's a lot of people going through the drive-through, and people coming in from the Pioneer or the A&W. It's a blind intersection, and so there could be like major issues going back and forth in terms of that. And there was, like, my understanding was, and I've heard that there was so much because of the bedrock underneath the development, and it will be probably in the next development. There's substantial granite or some type of very hard work. They have to jackhammer all day and all night. And there was a lot of disruption to the Harveys in terms of the dust that accumulated over to the property. There's also issues with the neighbors in the back, the residential neighbors, who had like foundation issues. And this isn't firsthand knowledge, but it's what Lisa has indicated to me in terms of what she has heard. And there's issues with what has been done so far. So the undertaking.
Excuse me. Sorry, I apologize, Mr. Chair. If I can make a comment, it has nothing to do with your submissions. I apologize. Mr. Malik is commenting in the chat, and I would really appreciate if he would stop doing so at this time. Thanks. Sorry, you can continue. Sorry, continue.
Thank you. And so in the correspondence, there's an undertaking by the applicant to if I could read to the chair and the committee members, this print's really small. It goes, and he says, we discussed that it's so small, but it says, we cannot open for the buildings without the fence up. So what they indicated to us is, no worry, once we finish the construction, we're going to put the facts up, and we can't open until that fence is put back up. So instead of doing that fence, they've now made it into a curb with a right of way. What our client's saying is, no, you don't have a right of way over it. And they've put back a fence to stop that, because there's just, we were getting so many complaints from the tenant of the Harveys owner, that it was so dangerous. And we've raised issues because there's also a school across the street, and there's a McDonald's to the, I believe, to the east of us. So there's a lot of students from the elementary school and the baseball park, as you all know, who would, go to the McDonald's and all that. And to have this development of such a sizable development going in the back without the proper, right of way, or it would just make so much traffic that I would admit it would be a danger to the community. And some type of traffic study as provided for should be done. I've made that submission in my letter to the committee members, and I said that there's an easement that is existing, but it's really, I submit, not a right-of-way easement, but simply just an easement for utilities that goes over our client's property, and it's not an ingress and egress as the applicant has made it to. And that's something that we would like to be confirmed, that if this application is granted, that fence be erected between the Harveys and the Pioneer gas station, that some type of limiting factor in terms of like dust and blockage of debris doesn't affect our would affect our tenant. There's if there is some type of entry and egress through our property, it would just be an extreme danger to the community at large. And it's just a in situation where there's no setup for that type, given the magnitude of that development. And as you know, that development is not on to the west of the McDonald's is commercial property. I can see the development going there because that's core downtown, but it's called the highway zoning. And where the applicant is seeking to make the development is actually residential zoning. So he's asking from a jump from almost to from a residential to commercial level. And I understand, it's always good to have progress, but I think in this situation, either it has to be sort of scaled down or limited to a certain degree, where there is like maybe a traffic study is provided for, be dealt with in terms of how the cars are going to be, coming in and coming out. And you've got the people in the back, the neighbors in the back who probably, don't know this process. They are obviously given notice, being as neighbors, but it only came to our attention because of the tenant Harveys, who indicated that this application was going through, and I believe the materials for this application was only available to us, I believe, today or Friday at late afternoon. So we only made our submissions based on what we knew to date. So we made in our application, in our submissions, reply to the application, we set out the various sections that we say that the application contravenes the Port Colborne official plan, and that's section 3.8.1. It has to require a submitted traffic impact study. The building does not meet the requirements of frontage to the road. It's landlocked, so it does not meet the requirements of section 3.8.2a and 3.7.2 sub 1d. And it must be like a certain amount of main road frontage. You've got the frontage for the used up by the Pioneer gas station. Now, these buildings in the back are technically landlocked, and with the landlocked issue, you're going to have a lot of traffic going through these certain areas, and I don't believe it's set out a proper ingress and egress to allow that. So given that it's a highway, cars are coming off the highway at very high speeds, they're going to, with that amount of traffic, especially if it's some type of office building where everybody's going to be going to the work at 9 o'clock once this COVID's over, and leaving at 5 o'clock, there's going to be so much traffic, and the kids are going to be off school at 3:30, 4 o'clock, baseball games. I think has to be some type of study done to ensure that there isn't some type of gridlock that could cause a lot of danger and additional liabilities for our clients or the city itself. And there's, we also submit that the building does not meet the requirements of frontage to the road. It's landlocked. It's in contravention of bylaw 65753018. The other issues I wanted to address quickly, and I thank your committee members for allowing us to raise these issues. And in terms of the development by the applicant, there has to be, if this is allowed to go through, we would require that the fence be restored as it was undertaken to do, to deal with the Harveys, that they don't use the entrance of our client's property to go into the Pioneer. It'd be blocked off as it has been for over 20 years, if not longer. There's always been a separation of the two properties, and we ask that be maintained. The easement is not specific. It's not a right of way. So we're asking for that easement to be either closed off. We don't have to deal with it now, but just a fence that be erected to prevent any access by the applicant through our client's property, in terms of construction or otherwise. He has ample access through his own property. There's no need for to go through our client's property, and that's the main concern. So we would ask that there's be some type of separation between that property, that huge commercial development that the applicant is doing, and our client's property and McDonald's, just for the issue of safety. McDonald's and our client goes right through. And I've actually attended the property, and I've seen how busy the drive-through is in terms of the Harveys. She's extremely successful and is doing a superb job. And I've seen how busy McDonald's is. And with this incredible development that's going ahead, if it proceeds, it's just going to add too much congestion to the property and the ingress and egress. For those reasons, we don't want this severance to occur as it stands, because it just allows the access and ingress through our client's property. And if the applicant is willing to say, we're going to honor what we agreed to do, put the fence back up, then we could certainly discuss it and we could proceed on that basis.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of the applicant, committee members? Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the applicant. I may have to swing back and forth between yourself, Mr. Wong, and our planner. I'm not, I guess we should divide your presentation into a couple component parts if we could, for the sake of the questions. So we're here tonight about the severance and consent to start what was phase 2, I understand, of an existing project. So I guess I'm assuming, and that can be dangerous, that the original entire mass of property, i.e. the A&W, the gas station, PETA, and then the future development to the west, was all part of one planning document accepted and passed that was going to be phased. And if that is the case, then through you, perhaps we'll skip over Mr. Wong just for 1 second so I can get back to him. Through you to David, is that, if I describe the status of, leaving out the easement for a second, have I described the current situation previous to this request tonight? Is that the state of the state?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno. If you could just clarify that a bit, that would be appreciated. You're talking about when the properties were divided?
So the subject tonight is the consent, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
So prior to this request, the entire development of Ritesh was approved, and now the request is to separate into two parcels.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the site plan for the property at 599 Main Street was approved in 2018. That was for both phase 1 and phase 2 of the property, as you see on the survey sketch. The part 1 on the property, which is the Pioneer gas station, A&W, that section was phase 1 with the stormwater management pond, and phase 2 is the other part you see in the rear where there's a strip mall and 2 other pads proposed. So that development has been approved as of 2018, and construction could technically start on that property tomorrow if they wish. This consent is just essentially splitting those 2 phases off.
Right, okay. So again, before Mr. Wong, so the issue of the easement / right of way, the correctness or incorrectness of that, is that a standalone legal issue between 2 parties as it relates to adjacent property owners and not subject to this consent application?
It's part and parcel to that, because there is, I looked at the title to the property, and there is an easement by 599 over a portion of the front portion of 575, the Harvey's property. And
if I might, the application this evening is not to gain access from the property to the west. It's simply to gain access to part 3 across part 1 of the existing property. It's not to gain access to the property to the west. If there's an issue with regards to that right of way or easement or whatever that agreement was initially, if it doesn't grant the right of way, then there should be a remedy for you guys to simply go to the owner of this particular parcel and say you don't have the right to cross our property to get to yours, and a barrier should go up if that's what the agreement was. That's not what we're here to discuss this evening. We're here to discuss just granting a right of way across part 1 that's on our sketch to part 3 in perpetuity, as well as to sever off part 3 from the larger parcel.
Yeah, my understanding is there's going to be mutual, exactly. My understanding is there's mutual easements between part 1 and part 3, so they have a flip side in terms of easements in terms of that. The issue is of the severance puts into place the issues of what I've discussed, the construction, the issues.
I will say, sir, you've had your opportunity to express your position. We understand your position, and you've also heard committee member Bruno discuss that this development is already agreed upon. They're just simply asking to sever off a chunk of the land, so title is under 2 different parts as opposed to 1 part. But the development itself, we're not discussing the actual development itself. That's already been approved. So we're not even going to go to what this development is or whether we're going to stop the development, because that's not what we're here to discuss this evening. So with that, does any other committee members have any questions? I think, Eric, you had your hand up.
No, my questions have been answered.
Thank you. Is there any other committee members have any questions? Mr. Rivers, do you have any comments that you wish to add to the presenter? In your microphone.
Oh, yes, I do. First off, I'm going to be referring to Mr. Wong's letter at length. But my initial comment is Mr. Wong, as a lawyer, has been making planning opinions, and certainly as a professional planner, it wouldn't be within my purview to make legal opinions, and his providing you with planning opinions as an untrained professional with no planning background, I think you need to take that, what he's been saying about the planning documents, with a grain of salt. With regard to Mr. Wong's letter, his very first point, the applicant is seeking an easement over our client's property, is not correct. 4293207 Ontario Incorporated cannot apply for an easement over 2035152 Ontario Limited's property without the latter's permission. That's the one of the first things that I want to point out to you. The second, on the second page, page 5, he talks about and he mentioned tonight that the land to the west is zoned residential. That is also not correct. 4923027 Incorporated's land is designated highway commercial in the official plan and zoned highway commercial HC. He says the proposed severance and redevelopment is being made on lands that are designated as residential development. Again, that is not correct. And he talks about the impact on the residential development. Again, not correct. The residential uses are buffered by a building, by zoning setbacks, and by a fence in the proposed site plan, or the approved site plan. He goes on saying that the new and expanding highway commercial uses may be required to submit a traffic impact assessment. The applicable agencies in this case have reviewed the site plan and have reviewed the severance application and have reviewed the zoning bylaw amendment application. The region and the MTO did not require a traffic impact statement, and Mr. Wong's opinion that it's necessary is just his opinion. He has no professional capability to make that statement. He says the zoning bylaw amendment is applied, he does not meet the requirements of frontage on the road when he speaks to the official plan sections. As we're aware, the zoning bylaw amendment has been applied for concurrently that will deal with that frontage issue and other issues related to the zoning. He points out that the amount of main road frontage, bylaw 6575-30-18 does not meet the minimum requirements. Again, that is not correct. He's talking here a minimum of 40% of the main street frontage of the given property should be defined by a building edge, and that's satisfied through the site plan agreement. He refers to section 382, 3.8.2a as well. Again, the zoning bylaw amendment has been applied for concurrently to deal with that. Moving on to page 3, he talks about the purpose of the plan. The planners will tell you, and I will certainly make that point, that a purpose is like a goal or a statement or a vision statement. That is implemented by policy. Mr. Wong makes no reference to the appropriate applicable policies. He's talking about a broad statement of general intentions without delving into what the policies of the plan actually say. Again, with respect to the vision is a broad statement implemented by policy. That's standard planning practice. He was concerned about in his 9.9 economic, environmental, and cultural resource impacts. There are no environmental or cultural resources impacted by this application in any way, shape, or form. He talks about this project being more appropriate to the downtown. Having been the planner in Port Colborne for a number of years and lived here for a long time, there are no vacant properties in downtown Port Colborne that I'm aware of, and I spend a lot of time down there. again, he talks to section 2.2. Again, this is a strategy. It's to be implemented by policy, and he does not refer to any policies. His 10th point, use of the easement right of way was not contemplated and is an intrusion to our client's ownership of the private property. The applicant has its own vehicular entrance, and all public utilities can be installed. And yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're applying for a consent minor and zoning bylaw amendment with conditions that the entrance will be used, will be used as the one we're speaking of in the easement now in this application. The severance and development would severely affect our client's property value. Again, he's provided no documentation other than his own comments to that effect. Obviously, Mr. Wong's client has some issues with Mr. Malik and the way the project has developed in the past. Those are issues that are not planning issues, and I would hope that you would disregard his comments on those things. Apart from answering your questions, that's my submission.
Thank you. Any other members got any questions? Not seeing
Mr.
any.
Chair, if I may just reply to Mr. Rivers' comments.
No, sir, you may not. You had your 10 minutes, and you've been granted your time to present your case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is Lisa still there? If she wishes, she can provide any comments she has.
Lisa did provide in the chat that she does agree with Mr. Wong's statement, and she would like to give her time to Mr. Wong.
Yeah, that's not possible. Okay. She has her time. If she wishes to use it, she can use it. Okay. I'm assuming she doesn't.
I'll move Lisa into the room if she would like to use the time. If not, we can go from there. No comment. Okay, she says.
Okay, Eric.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Rivers. Do you have any comments about Mr. Wong's comments regarding the proposed commercial building being landlocked, the severed part?
To you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Beauregard, yes, it is landlocked, and that's the purpose of the easement and the zoning bylaw amendment application, to provide for legal frontage and the required setbacks from the zoning bylaw. Basically, what we're asking the city to do is to deem the frontage of Part 3 to be the frontage of Part 1, if I got the parts right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Not seeing any. The one question I do have, maybe to David, you mentioned that one of the conditions to add that you had late was for a zoning bylaw amendment on Part 3. Can you elaborate on what that zoning bylaw amendment would entail?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So as Mr. Rivers has indicated, there is a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application for this property as well, which will be coming to a council meeting very shortly. Basically, the premise of that amendment is a technical rezoning to recognize the frontage of Part 3 as a frontage on the road. So typically our bylaw would require that lots have frontage on a road. However, the amendment seeks to seek relief from that section of our bylaw, sorry. So as a result of that official or zoning bylaw amendment approval will be required to be approved in order for the consent to be granted, as a condition of the consent in order for the consent to be finalized. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any final questions of the applicant? Donna?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering about as far as the driveway entrance goes, I know I've been over there and I understand the concerns. But there will be an extended, we will have a larger driveway at the front of this property going in that will be able to access, to have the cars going down through to the back to the new parcel piece at the back. Is my understanding that from what I read, it sounds as if there will be an extended opening there. Am I right?
Mr. Rivers, can you comment on that?
To you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Cridlin, to Councillor Donna. The existing entrance will stay as it is. Basically, the easement is for part 1 and part 3 to share parking lot, share easements to be able to provide water and sewer and electricity and those things over part 1 to part 3. The entrance that's there now to part 1 to the gas station and the other uses is the entrance that has been approved through the site plan control process by the region.
Thank you.
Eric, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to our planner. The easement, how long would it last for? Would it last forever?
The easement would be in perpetuity, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Angie, you good?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Mr. Rivers, do you have any closing comments?
I think I've said enough.
Thank you, sir. Can I look to any committee members for any final comments or recommendation? Somebody's got to be able to read. Come on. Nobody? Eric, there you go. And Eric, just keeping in mind, you just need to reference the application number,
the address,
the plan or the staff's report, as well as I think. Yeah, make sure you get that latest one that he sent you that has that condition about the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, I'll see what I can get, but I'm just pulling up the resolution right now. Wow. Okay. Sorry. Which what's the application number that we're dealing with right now?
B07-20-PC.
Okay. Sorry. Just gotta pull it out. Okay. I may ask for your help in this, David, for that last condition, but in the meantime, I'll just say it. I'll just say it out right now. So in application B07-20-PC, in the matter of the property legally known as part of Lot 31, Concession 2 in the former township of Humberstone, now City of Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 599 Main Street West. And as stated in the planning report, for application B07-20-PC, it be granted subject to the conditions in the report, as well as, and what was that last condition?
I believe it had to do with the requirement for the zoning bylaw amendment on part 3 to be granted.
Okay, and that condition. That's my motion.
Cover what?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it would be that the concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application for part 3 of the property be approved by council.
Correct. Okay.
Right.
All right. Seconder to that? Angie? Oh yeah, sure. Take the easy part. Just second.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. No, sorry. I was in favor. I was a little late. Sorry.
Where's the street?
All right. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, the next application, please.
All right, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to read out the application for Steve Greenwood. He also has an application. We're just going to do them at the same time here, just to save him a little time because he's at the end as well. So I'll read through his consent application here, and then if it's okay with you, I can just read the second one right off, and that sounds good. Okay. So our next application here is application B08-20-PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 section 53(1 and in the matter of the lands legally known as lots 2 and 3 of Plan 843 in the City of Port Colborne Regional Municipality of Niagara being Part 2 of Plan 59R-8510 and being located in the downtown commercial zone municipally known as 247 Welland Street. In the matter of an application by the agent Steve Greenwood on behalf of the owner Gary Parker for consent under section 53(1 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 so as to permit the conveyance of an easement in perpetuity of land being Part 2 for a total lot area of 147.2 meters squared for the purpose of a right-of-way and to retain the balance of subject land having a total lot frontage of 55.96 meters at 247 Welland Street for continued commercial use. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offered the following comments. For public comments, notice was circulated on November 24th, 2020, and no written correspondence has been received. Notice was also circulated to different agencies November 24th, and the following has been received. I don't think there was much. There were no comments or concerns from the region or the NPCA, and as well from the fire department. So, from the planning staff, given the information, planning staff recommend application B08-20-PC be granted, subject to the following conditions. Let me go over here. That the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. And 2, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. For the following reasons: 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and also comply to the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended. And 2, the decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13. So I will read Mr. Greenwood's second application here. So this application is application number A14-20-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended and section 3.1.1, 3.2, 3.10, 3.11.1, 23.3K and 23.5I of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended, and in the matter of the lands legally known as lots 3 and 4 of Plan 843 in the City of Port Colborne Regional Municipality of Niagara, being on Part 2 of Plan 59R-8510 and being located in the downtown commercial zone municipally known as 89 and 91 Durham Street. And in the matter of the application by the applicant Steve Greenwood on behalf of the owner Gerald DeHaan for relief from the provision of zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 so as to permit the construction of a 3-story residential building at 89 and 91 Durham Street, subject to the following. 1, that 1 parking space be permitted where 1.25 is required. 2, that a 5.1 meter parking stall depth be permitted where 5.2 meters is required. 3, that no loading zone be permitted where 1 loading zone is required. 4, that no landscape buffer be permitted to the south where a 3-meter landscape buffer is required. 5, that a 0.5 meter landscape buffer be permitted to the east where a 3-meter landscape buffer is required. 6, that a gross floor area of 103.3% is permitted where a maximum of 100% is required. And 7, that a landscaped area of 0% be permitted where a minimum of 25% is required. Planning staff have reviewed the reference application and offer these comments. Notice was circulated on November 27th and no written correspondence had been received. Notice was also circulated to different agencies on November 27th and the following had been received. No concerns from the fire department as well as from the engineering department. Engineering also notes that from the development review side of engineering, the parcel will need to provide a grading plan to ensure through the development that they are not negatively impacting the neighbors with the expansion of the paved area. So the planning staff suggests that the consent application A14-20-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, that it is minor in nature as the proposed apartment building will not result in adverse impacts to neighboring properties. 2, it's appropriate for development of the site since the proposed apartment building is located in an appropriate area for the site. 3, it's desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as the proposed apartment building is permitted in the downtown commercial zone. And 4, it's desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as apartment buildings are permitted in the mixed-use area of the East Waterfront Secondary Plan in the city's official plan.
That's it. Thank you. We can bring the applicant in at this time. I just want to advise the committee members that these applications are not conditional upon each other. So even though we're doing them together, it's just that they pertain kind of to the same property. So that's why I suggested we bring them together to discuss them at the same time because they do relate to one another. So when we do move them at the end, we will have to still separate them and do them separately so they're not conditional upon the other. Unless, of course, you wish to make them conditional upon each other, but that's something that we can decide. So with that, if we can bring in the applicant or the applicant's representative. Okay. And did we lose Gary or is he just hiding?
No, I'm here.
Okay. I didn't see you on the screen, so I was just wanted to make sure.
I'm just trying to get something over so I can do some reading for you.
Steve Greenwood, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Is there anything that, I guess before I start, you don't wish to withdraw your application this evening?
I do not.
Okay. So with that, is there anything you'd like to add at this time pertaining to either one of these applications?
Not much in the way of that. Both owners have discussed it over. It seems to be mutual beneficial to both of them to have this 3-story 9-unit development occur. The current property for Gary Parker, I should say, on the west, currently has a restaurant establishment. He has made mention that adding an additional 9 units can only help some of his patronage.
Excellent. Is there any committee members that have any questions of the applicant? Donna and then Eric.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wondered when I was looking at it and I visited the site, will it be an exterior access to the stairways or is there a plan for interior elevator stairways? How is that going to work? It's on the exact same footprint, is my understanding. Am I right?
Correct. Sorry. Through you, Chair, to Donna, Councilor, Committee Member Donna.
Yep.
There will be a site plan agreement that will be required, assuming this goes through. We'll need to provide proper building drawings. There will be 2 interior staircases that will serve the total 9 units.
Okay.
Thank you. You wouldn't know by chance how big these units are, if they're 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom?
through you, Chair, to Councillor Donna. They would probably be in the area of 600 to 800 square feet, likely one bedroom.
Okay. Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair. What's the reasoning for the 0% landscaped area? What's the reasoning for your request of that?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Eric, sorry. We view the property as the existing driveway out back. There is obviously a driveway that comes through the side, and on the east, we thought about using that as buffer, but it may actually make more sense for a pathway, pedestrian pathway, for safety reasons. Hope that answers your question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, does the landscape area include the rear yard and front yard?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Eric. Yes, it does, to our knowledge. The front sidewalk does abut right up to the front of the building. The rear does allow for some space for a landscape. However, we deem that it would be best beneficial to allow that space for possible snow clearing pile up. And that would be in the rear of the parking.
Can you just elaborate on that? Maybe the snow pile up? I don't necessarily understand.
So the parking is fairly tight as it sits now, and to the southwest of the building there is a bit of an area, a flat area. If you're able to view the site sketch there, that's probably where we would like to pile the snow.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, we'll go to Angie and then back to Donna.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the presenter, I would like to know how much consideration was given for handicapped access, both in parking and in actual access to the property.
So through you, Chair, to Councillor Angie. The building as it sits is separate units for an apartment. To our understanding, it does not require a BFA access. However, we have had discussion to allow parking lot number 1, the allowable width for BFA as required.
So you're speaking to one, there will be one handicap parking spot for the building?
Correct.
Okay, and the access to the apartments, will they have individual street access as well as the stairways, or is it one communal entrance?
Sorry, there will be one hallway entrance. There will be a staircase at the rear of the building contained within it, and then a centrally located staircase.
Okay, and that is that will be, of course, handicapped accessible as well?
As we required for the first level only, we will put in a BFA unit.
Good, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Thank you. Donna and then Gary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just one more question. Is there any possibility when you're looking, I know it's very difficult to landscape a building like this, and I went over and had a look, and I know that there is a fence along the back there. Is there any possibility of being able to at least green it up to allow people who are living there to have a little bit of green space? Could we ask perhaps if there was a line of cedars growing along the back fence, something just to have that visual greening piece, especially if you're talking about putting in a walkway, something along that way? Is there anything thought about or could be thought about in that way?
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Donna, are you referring to just the rear or the east of the property?
I'm referring to just the rear because I'm sure that that's where the parking area is going, but I'm thinking that you're thinking to the east is where you were talking about putting a pathway, perhaps, a walkway?
That's correct, yes.
So I'm assuming, hopefully, maybe there'd be a chance to do something green in there. It's just, you know, the more green, the better. I know it's a downtown area and, you know, the buildings are very close to the road. I live in one myself. I understand how it works. But I do understand that the greening would be helpful. And, you know, I look at that 0 and I think, ooh, but at the same time, I understand why it has to be and why it can still be a great place to live and it's needed. So any thought that could be given to that would be greatly appreciated.
Definitely be taken into account. We can definitely look at breaking apart some of the fencing the way it sits now and possibly putting in some foliage.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, thanks for the excellent presentation and comments up to now. I have to tell you, I'm asking a question vicariously from a resident. Is this is the intent that this zoning bylaw permits, it's probably a joint question with their planner, an apartment building as opposed to a, I forget the term he used, a rooming house. So I guess my question is, is there a differentiation between the two? And is the intent, Steve, sorry, the differentiation between the two is for our planner and to Steve. Will these be rented like in an annual, what would presume a normal apartment building rents in terms of a lease?
They would be in that term of an apartment, each individual unit. A rooming house is typically defined as individual rooms rented out in separate areas, whereas each one of these 9 units will have their own kitchen area and then sleeping area.
Thank you.
Angie, did you have a question? You look puzzled.
I actually do. If I can, you concerned me a little bit there. We said kitchen area and then sleeping area. Are these not fully laid out apartments with kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom?
Sorry, they are. I misspoke. That they have full units. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Eric, did you have a question?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to our planner. Does having, looking at the sketch, there is a parking lot that looks like it, not parking lot, sorry, parking space that is parking space number 7 that is supposed to be on the proposed new right-of-way. Is there anything from a planning perspective that would make that problematic? Or is that fine being the way it is on the sketch?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Beauregard. That parking space has been requested for in the proposed right-of-way as well. So when we're dealing with an application for a proposed right-of-way, it technically becomes part of the property for their use, of course. So in this case, the owner has consented to the owner of this future apartment building to use that spot as a space for his parking.
So, sorry, just as a follow-up. So in the event, say, Mr. Parker no longer owns that property and he moves away, and then the new owner of that property wants to have that right-of-way removed, what would happen in that case? Would that be possible?
That would be, through you, Mr. Chair, that would be something that once the easement is registered on title, it will be there for as long as the city is aware. It would have to be something that the legal advisor of the new property owner would be dealing with to remove that easement. I believe there's a bit of a process with that, and to be honest, I'm not an expert in that by any means, so I prefer not to comment any further on that.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say to your point, Eric, I guess the reason why this easement comes to this committee is because it is in perpetuity, so basically forever. And that's the reason why. If it was just for like a 20-year thing, I don't think it needs to come. There is a certain time frame at which it has to come to the committee because it becomes, in essence, permanent. So I would imagine they would probably have to come to the committee again and have it removed, I would assume, because it would have to be something that'd be agreed to and taken off title.
Okay, so is that something that the committee can do? Is make it like put a duration on that?
No,
spot?
the purpose the purpose of the easement is for in perpetuity, forever.
Okay. Yes.
Until both parties come back and say they want to change that, then it would have to be removed at that time, I guess, by committee as well.
Okay.
I've never seen that happen, and quite frankly, I haven't seen too many cases where we've granted easements in perpetuity. This evening we had actually 2 applications, which is kind of rare. I only recall 1 or maybe 2 others over my 14-year tenure here where we've had this situation, but usually it's a fine little sliver for a pipeline or gas line or something like that, but this one's a little bit more significant. But sorry, Donna, did you have a question too, another one?
No, oops. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, did you have a question or no?
Sorry. No, it was answered. I just had a question. It was regarding the, it was a question regarding accessibility, but I think I'm good with it. So you're telling me that as far as accessibility, it would be the first floor, and it's just 1 unit that's required on the first floor, Steve, is that right?
To my knowledge, I'm not 100%, but we would be designing the building to proper OBC standards. So if it does require the 1, we would.
Thank you. I was just wondering because the second and third floor wouldn't be as accessible, so I thought perhaps first floor might require more than 1, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once. Eric.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, is there a reason why that you want this easement to be in perpetuity instead of it being for a shorter duration of time?
Through you, Chair, to Member Eric, it is to understanding that this is typically how the planning process goes with going and asking for that in perpetuity. So
yeah, I guess, Eric, to your point, if you made it for 20 years, what happens in 20 years and that's still an apartment building, now they can't gain access to their parking lot at the back. That's why it's in perpetuity.
Okay, I guess what I was thinking is maybe instead of doing this application, they go to and enter into like a mutual agreement with the operator instead of us conveyance, but I understand.
Okay. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Anything, we don't have any public people that want to speak to this? No? Is there any final comments you'd like to make, Steve, with regards to the application?
Mr. Chair, to you, Mr. Chair, I do not. I'm good. Thanks.
Excellent. Can I look for someone to move Donna?
Okay, so I will move. You're going to help me here, Dan. I've got the one in front of me to the side, the application B08-20-PC in the matter of the Planning Act, RXO 1990 CP 13, Section 53-1, and in the matter of the lands legally known as lots 2 and 3 of Plan 843 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, being Part 2 of Plan 59R-85010 and being located in the downtown commercial zone municipally known as 247 Welland Street. I keep going?
Yeah, and just with your recommendation,
okay,
and then reference the conditions per the staff report.
And in the matter of an application by the agent Steve Greenwood on behalf of the owner Gary Parker for the consent under section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, chapter page 13, so as to permit the conveyance of an easement in perpetuity of land being part 2 for a total lot area of 147.2 meters squared for the purpose of a right-of-way, and to retain the balance of subject land having a total lot frontage of 55.96 meters at 247 Welland Street for continued commercial use. Am I on the right one here? Though
Yep.
This is
You're
okay.
doing good.
That consent application B08-20-PC be granted, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant provide the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel, of a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent, that a final certificate fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, for the following reasons: that the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended. This decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13.
Perfect. Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Gary, any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Be carried. And then the second one is A14. I just got to find it in the email.
Solution.
Sorry, my email shows them scattered all over the place. So
You're right, Mr. Chair, it's 8/14/20.
I know it's A4. I'm just trying to find it on my screen so I can read along. Okay, so if someone's got a recommendation for A14, Angie?
Yes, I will move this. Okay, so in the matter of the so I'm just reading the address and referencing the report, correct?
Application number, address, and your recommendation, and you can just reference the staff report for the remainder.
Okay. So in application A14-20-PC, in the matter of the lands legally known as lots 3 and 4 of Plan 843 in the City of Port Colborne, the regional municipality of Niagara, being on Part 2 of Plan 59R 8510 and being located in the downtown commercial zone, municipally known as 89 and 91 Durham Street. Okay, just pulling down to, all right. And that, okay, that all the conditions listed in the report be met. So there were 7 items there, and that the consent application be granted.
Thank you.
What else was I reading on this?
That would do it.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry. What did you want? The reasons? Oh, sorry.
Reasons?
Yeah, it wants you the reasons: the minor, the appropriate, desirable, and.
Okay, that the consent application 1420-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, minor in nature, as the proposed apartment building will not result in adverse impacts to the neighboring properties. 2, appropriate for development of the site, since the proposed apartment building is located in an appropriate area on site. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as the proposed apartment building is permitted in the downtown commercial zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as apartment buildings are permitted in the mixed use areas of the East Waterfront secondary plan in the city's official plan.
There we go. I'm getting a thumbs up and a nod from the planner. So can I get a seconder for that? Gary, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Be carried. Eric, sorry, were you opposing Eric or?
Sorry, I thought the first one that we went through already was the consent, and then this application was supposed to be the minor variance, but apparently I got it wrong. So I would like to be opposed to this one, and I was want to be in favor of the first one regarding the minor variance.
So you're in favor of the variances and opposed to the consent?
Correct.
Okay, noted. All right. Steve, if you're still there is a waiting period for that. I believe it's 20 days for both. It's the same period. But thereafter, you're good to go if no one appeals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, the next, I guess, 3 applications as they all pertain to the same property.
Okay, so our next couple applications here are applications B09-20-PC, B10-20-PC, and B11-20-PC. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. And in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the vacant lands legally known as part of Lot 5 on Concession 1, being Part 2 of Plan 59R-8037 on the west side of Empire Road in the former municipality of Humberstone, now the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara. And in the matter of an application by the agent Matt Kernahan on behalf of the owner 5040695 Ontario Inc. for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of 3 parts, each having a lot frontage of 55 meters with a total lot area of 1.09 hectares on Empire Road for a future residential use. Part 4 will retain a lot frontage of 238.53 meters on Empire Road with a total lot area of 4.76 hectares for future residential use. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offer the following comments. From the public, notice was circulated on November 20th, and the following written correspondence has been received from a Mr. Dan Young of 4791 Shirkston Road, Port Colborne. He does not object to the severances, but wishes to make a suggestion that currently the lands drain onto his property, which is directly to the west, and he would like to suggest a north-south drainage swale be constructed to collect the water and discharges into his swale. As for the agency comments, notice was circulated on November 20th, and the following written correspondence has been received. So from the Niagara region, the proposal is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the intent of the provincial or regional policies for lot creation in the rural area. Regional staff does not object to the proposed consent, subject to the satisfaction of any local requirements and the following conditions. 1, that the hydrogeological investigation of the proposed residential severance part of Lot 5, Concession 1, prepared by TerraPro, be revised to address the comments outlined in Appendix 1. And 2, that the owner enters into a development agreement with the city to be registered against the title of Parts 1, 2, and 3 to require, A, that the required septic permit applications to Niagara Region implement the revised hydrogeological investigation report, including but not limited to that the future septic systems be located at the northwest corner of the property, at the northwest corner of the proposed lots as shown on Figure F, proposed severance plan west option, and 2, that the water supply for these lots will be by cistern. And comments from the NPCA, they have no objections to any of the applications. So planning staff says that consent applications B09-20-PC, B10-20-PC, and B11-20-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1, that the hydrogeological investigation for the proposed residential severance part of Lot 5, Concession 1, prepared by TerraPro, be revised to address the comments outlined in Appendix 1 of Niagara Region's formal comment. 2, that the owner enters into a development agreement with the city to be registered against the title of Parts 1, 2, and 3 to require the implementation of the recommendations of the revised hydrogeological investigation to the satisfaction of the Niagara Region. 3, that a drainage apportionment agreement be completed by the city's drainage superintendent or by an approved engineer at the cost of the applicant 4, that a master lot grading plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the engineering department. Should the parcels not drain independently of one another, a mutual agreement drain will be required. 5, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748-130-05, which requires the collection of the parkland dedication at the time of the building permit application based on the value of the property the day before issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise the future purchasers of this requirement. Number 6, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel of a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper and digital copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. 7, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. For the following reasons: 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and provisions of Zoning Bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13.
Thank you. Is the applicant there?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Great. So my name's Matt Kernahan. I'm a senior planner with Planning and Engineering, and I'm the agent representing the property owner in this instance. I don't have a lengthy presentation to make for you this evening. You've got a lot on your plate, that's for sure, so I'll do my best to be brief. I had the opportunity to review the report that was prepared by planning staff for the Committee of Adjustment that was dated December 1st, as well as the memorandum that was prepared with the updated conditions from Mr. Schultz dated today. And I can confirm that both my client and I are in total agreement with these documents, including the recommendation to approve the consents, as well as the conditions that are outlined in the memorandum dated today. So I respectfully ask that the committee adhere to the recommendations of staff and approve these applications. And I thank you for your consideration and am open to answer any questions that the committee has.
Thank you. Does any members have any questions of the applicant? Not seeing any. We don't have any public inquiries on this one. The only question I do have in relation to the correspondence received from the neighbor to the west. In the conditions that are imposed in the staff report, does it address that drainage? I know it talks about a master lot grading plan, but that would only come into play once they start developing these properties. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, based on the drainage superintendent's comments, she stated that the drain report is currently under review, which will address the drainage issues in that area, hopefully. She did respond to the commenter about that and his suggestions, and she did advise him that the conditions, or not the conditions, the recommendations that he made would be something they would be addressing and putting forward through that report.
Is there a time frame of when that's to come forward?
I don't have the exact time frame in my head, but if I had to guess, it's relatively soon, okay. Probably within the year.
The reason I asked the question, I was in discussions with staff, I was tempted to make part of the condition that drainage issue be addressed as part of the conditions of the severance. I'm not suggesting that it be anything major other than a swale be across the back, and then it looks like based on the drawings that were provided, there is some sort of drainage ditch or pathway through the middle of the property. If there's a way to just stop any drainage from these 3 particular lots into the neighboring property to the west. I guess if the city's looking at working at the drainage issues out in that area will be addressed shortly, then maybe it's a moot point, but I'm just wondering if there's something that could be done by the applicant now as part of the condition to at least address that in the short term to minimize that impact now. And I see David's got his hand up.
Through you, Mr. Chair. To my knowledge, just dealing with the engineering department on a daily basis, properties aren't allowed to drain onto neighboring properties. So the reasoning for the master lot grading plan that the engineering department has requested is to show how the properties are currently draining. And if they are draining on neighboring properties, then a mutual agreement would have to be agreed upon between the two property owners. So I'm assuming that assuming is not always the best thing to do, but if the two owners agree to it, they would install a swale to address the concerns in that grading plan.
So I guess then to my point, so point 3 there where it says, no, sorry, it wouldn't be number 4, or would it fall under a development agreement that would address that? Would 3 address that? Part of the development agreement?
The 2 conditions that engineering provided were for the drainage apportionment and the master lot grading plan. So based on that master lot grading plan, if the properties do not drain independently of one another, they will have to have that mutual agreement in place.
Okay. And that would have to be, I guess the plan would have to be adopted as part of the condition, but would the actual implementation of that have to be done as part of the condition as well?
That's a good question.
And I guess that's where I go to the point.
I believe the master lot grading plan, once that's submitted, that's considered the condition cleared. The engineering department won't allow a building permit to be issued on the property until that is resolved. Right.
So, and this is the point that I was trying to go to, is that yes, they get the lot severed now, and it's 5-10 years from now before they actually go for a building permit because they've sold them or whatever, and then finally it gets addressed 10 years from now. I'm just wondering, we have an opportunity here where there's a neighboring property. I appreciate the fact that no property is to drain onto the adjacent property. It sounds like this has been going on for a number of years out there. I know it's kind of flat in that particular area, and drainage is probably an issue everywhere out there. But I was just wondering if it's possible to add a condition to add a swale, even if it's temporary until development agreement comes into play, that it limits any impact on the neighboring property, at least in the short term. I don't think it would be much other than to maybe drag a ditch along the back to make sure that these properties don't drain onto the neighboring properties. Is that a possibility to add a condition of such?
It could be a possibility. It's tough without having the engineering department's opinion on it, but if the committee so chooses to add that in, then that's how it is.
I guess to the agent that's representing the applicant, would that sound like something that can be reasonably done without too much grief and pain, at least in the short term, to alleviate the neighbor's concern?
To you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the concern with the existing drainage issue, but in my opinion, I think there's 2 separate issues which are dealt with in 2 separate ways. Condition number 4, the master lot grading plan and mutual grading agreement requirement, that deals with the new development. That condition would ensure that the new development wouldn't cause any drainage issues on the existing or on the property to the west. The issue of the existing drainage issues, that is something that was addressed through the comments from the drainage superintendent, and our view is that that's, and I think it was hers as well, that that's something that the city is going to be looking at through their engineering department, and they're going to be coming up with solutions to that, as Mr. Schultz mentioned, in the not too distant future. So our preference would be to leave that that more universal drainage study and solution to the city through their planned study.
Okay. Again, I just go back to my comment about, I understand that once you develop the land, you need to have a draining plan. I'm just concerned about the timing here. You have a neighbor that's expressed concerns. We have an opportunity here to potentially help address those concerns now. I understand this you know, there's a city plan in place to address it. I won't say that the city drags their feet or anything like that, but you know, as things as they are, money availability, so on and so forth, you know, that in itself could be another 2 or 3 years before it's officially addressed as well, because it's got to be, you know, budgeted for and so on and so forth. So that's my only concern, is that if something immediate can be done, I guess I'll leave it at the sense that current bylaws require that no property is to drain onto the neighboring property. So maybe it's best left at that, and if the neighboring property owner is feeling the adverse effects of the current land the way it is, then there is remedy that they could take to the city to have that addressed more quickly, if that's a fair statement. So with that, I don't have anything further. Gary, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I understand where you're going, Mr. Chair. I thought that the concern, I thought, would have been of the developer, that the conditions, the consent have to be fulfilled within 1 year. Do they not, Mr. Planner?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
So doesn't the development agreement, if the issue of drainage was put in there, allow then the process to proceed so that there's not, to the chair's point, not there is a final solution. I understand the short-term solution, but it seems to me that with the development agreement, which doesn't then necessarily have to wait in the sense of passing the consent, because the development agreement then kicks in. I'm not sure if the development agreement can last longer than a year, if that's how long it takes the city. In other words, David, does the development agreement allow the applicant to get his consent in time before the deadline, but also guarantees the neighbors that the job will be done before a building permit? In other words, both sides are able to have assurance that things are going to happen.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the committee wishes, they could include the conditions that engineering has provided within that development agreement and put it all under that development agreement. So the applicant would be required to enter into that agreement with the city in order to clear the condition of the consent. That would still require, depending on how it's worded in the agreement, it would require those plans to be submitted before the building permit application typically. Yeah.
The reason I asked, the reason I'm about to ask this question is I saw the agent nodding his head. So I don't know if he was nodding that that's the way it could go, or that's the way he'd like it to go, because it gets him, it gets the developer the consent potentially sooner, rather than waiting for the city and all the reasons the chair has espoused. If I could hear from the agent.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was nodding my head because that's exactly the purpose of a development agreement, is to register on title certain requirements that need to be fulfilled in the future before a building permit is made. And the condition to enter into the agreement is a relatively easy one to clear, because you come up with the engineering drawings that show what's to occur in the future, and then you apply to the city and pay a fee to draft up an agreement between the city and the developer in order to implement those things in the future. So I guess to circle back, the purpose of that development agreement and what it would achieve is to ensure that in the short term, what needs to be done can be agreed upon, and in the longer term, that it gets done by way of registering that agreement on title, which carries forward the lots, no matter who owns them.
So does that, through the chair, does that allow you for the consent conditions to be not met in the sense of at the building permit stage, but allow you to get on with all the other processes, pre-sales, house design, all that stuff, knowing that you're still signed on to the commitment but you get your consent? Is that the preferred way for the, to move the process along sooner? It's not going to change when it gets done, because it's going to get done potentially at the time of building permit sooner if the city moves sooner. But I'm to the point of, if the planner and chair are right that the city, for various reasons, has to delay, does that not put the developer and frankly the neighbor in a up in the air position? And what if we're down to the wire on the city doing its end? For either one of you.
I guess if I might, my concern is the future. The requirement is to make a plan. A plan is great, it's on a piece of paper, doesn't resolve the drainage issue until the plan is implemented. And the condition is to make a plan so that when development does happen, whenever that is in the future, it will then be addressed. Doesn't deal with the current issue, and I guess that's my point.
Well, I hear you, Mr. Chair, but I don't know how you would, well, what do you deal with it and pond it on the vacant lot? I mean, I don't know how you do that temporary, where's the temporary solution go? And is there, I mean, does it change the potential for the ultimate design? So you got to work it backwards then if you put the, I don't know, if you retain the water on one lot? Like, it just seems to me to be a lot of double effort.
I'm not saying that it needs to be retained on lot. All I'm asking is that the neighbor has concerns that the water from these particular lots and field currently drain onto his property and field and causes an issue. I realize that the drainage overall has to be shared between all properties. That's why this study is being done and the apportionment agreement comes into play. I understand all of that. If there's remedy for the neighboring property owner now to do something because it does drain onto his property and that's not permitted, then so be it. Then it'd have to be addressed more quickly, I guess, if he raises a complaint. I guess not to belittle this. I'm certainly in favor of the severances and of all of those. So I don't want to hold up or stymie development in any stretch of the word. I guess my biggest concern is on an unrelated matter. We have a development that should have a grading plan of subdivision that now sat for X number of years, and Gary knows where I'm referring to. And until development actually happens, it doesn't get addressed. And that's my concern, is that I don't know when this development will happen. At that point, it will be addressed, obviously, because you'll have to have this master lot grading plan to follow. And that's my only concern. But if there is remedy for the neighbor, it looks like the drainage superintendent is addressing that. And if that's in the short term, then so be it. So with that, like I said, I don't want to go all night over drainage, but anyway. Does anyone else have any other questions? Not seeing any. Does anyone have a recommendation? We can try to do all three together to make things a little bit simpler. Anybody wants to take a stab? Donna, there you go.
Okay, I'll try one more time.
So just maybe before you start, if you just cover the part of the legal description of the lands, I'm assuming you're going to be recommending granting of the consent applications for the severances. And in this particular case, do we need to read all of the conditions, or can we just refer to the staff report and then just the reasons at the end? That suffice?
You can refer to the staff report conditions.
Okay. So if you just cover the application numbers, the legal description of the land, whether you're for or against, or granted or denied, okay. And then just there's those two reasons at the end to cover those, and we should be good.
Okay. Stop me if I go too far.
I will.
Applications for consent B0920-PC, B10-20-PC, and B11-20-PC, VL west side of Empire Road. In response to the comments for this application received from the Niagara region dated December 8th, 2020, and comments received from the engineering department, planning staff offers the following amendments to the planning comment dated December the 1st, 2020. Planning staff recommends consent application B0920 PC be granted subject to the following conditions. So I don't need to read the conditions, right? Or do I?
I'm just wondering if you want to say B9, B10, and
Okay.
B11.
Okay, B9, B10, and B11 PC be granted. And the you said I don't need to read the conditions, or should I read those?
Is Dan there? Sorry, I can't see him.
So that the hydrological investigation of the proposed residential severance.
Yeah, you don't have to read all of those, sorry. Just
So there are 7 of those conditions, and for the following reason, the application conforms to the policies of the regional official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. The decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13.
Perfect, thank you. Seconder to that? Gary, any other questions or comments? Applicant's clear on all of that? I know we kind of went around in circles there a little bit, but everything's good there. All those in favor? Opposed? Be carried. Thank you.
Come on, what do you want?
And Mr. Secretary Treasurer, the next application, please.
Okay, so the next application is application A12-20-PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended and section 15.3H of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, and in the matter of vacant property legally known as part of lots 1 and 2, concession 1, former Township of Humberstone, now City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, being Part 2 on Plan 59R 15397 and located in the RU Rural Zone. And in the matter of an application by the owners Sarah and Brian Engels for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the construction of a 318.2 square meters 2-story detached dwelling with an attached garage on the south side of Missioner Road, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a maximum height of 11.989 meters be permitted where a maximum of 11 meters is permitted for detached dwellings. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the public on November 23rd, 2020. As of the date of this report, no written correspondence has been received. As for agency comments, notice was circulated on November 23rd, 2020, and the following correspondence has been received from the Niagara region, and that they have no objections to the application provided a septic permit is applied for and a new sewage system is installed. Planning staff do not object to the application and recommend approval subject to the condition requested from the Niagara Region Private Sewage System staff, and that minor variance application A12-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the increase in height is minimal and not likely to cause any land use compatibility concerns. 2, it's appropriate for development of the site since the proposed construction is located in a suitable location on the site and is desirable for the property. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as residential uses are permitted in the rural zone. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent of the purpose of the official plan and residential uses are permitted in areas with the rural designation.
Thank you. We have the applicant there.
Hello?
Hello?
I'm here.
I'm assuming this is Brian?
Yes, it is.
All right,
It's
just,
worked the whole time until you let me join, and then it literally crashed and restarted on me. Same with the first applicant.
oh, well, at least we got you in on time.
Yeah.
Just before we get started, you don't wish to withdraw your application or defer it?
No, definitely not.
Excellent. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
No, it was all pretty straightforward. Everything was covered.
Thank you. Is there any questions of the applicant from the members?
Nope.
Not seeing any. There's no public inquiries on this one. All right. Can I look for a mover and a seconder? Eric?
In application A12-20-PC and in the matter of vacant property legally known as part of lots 1 and 2 concession 1, former township of Humberstone, now city of Port Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, being part 2 on plan 59R-15397 and located in the RU rural zone, and as recommended in planning report for A12, well, in this application, that the application be granted for the reasons followed in the report.
Thank you. Oh, he wants the reasons noted there, Eric, sorry.
So I must say that, okay, that they're minor in nature. Do I need to go into the full read, like minor in nature as the increase in height is minimal and not likely to cause any land use compatibility concerns? 2, appropriate for development of the site since the proposed construction is located in a suitable location on the site and is desirable for the property. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as residential uses are permitted in the rural zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as residential uses are permitted in areas with rural designation.
Perfect, thank you. Seconder to that? Donna, any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Gary, you're the only one I can't see. If you can give me an affirmative.
Yes.
Thank you. There is a 20-day waiting period for that to clear, but after that, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Secretary Treasurer, the last application, please.
Okay. So our last application here is application A13-20-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended, section 17.4E and section 17.5D and F of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended. And in the matter of the lands legally known as part of lots 21 and 22 concession 1, being part 6 on plan 59R-1031, former township of Humberstone, now city of Port Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, located in the agricultural zone, municipally known as 856 Lorraine Road. And in the matter of an application by the owner, Alicia McIsaac, for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP13, so as to permit the construction of a 111.48 meter squared accessory structure and an attached kennel, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a maximum height of 6.2 meters be permitted, whereas a maximum of 6 meters is permitted for accessory structures. 2, that a minimum side yard setback of 3 meters be permitted, where 25 meters is required for a kennel. 3, a minimum distance to adjacent dwellings of 145 meters be permitted. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments for this hearing. Notice was circulated to the public on November 23rd, and a written submission was received from a Miss Tanya Critter. She did not have a municipal address, as I don't think that's available on that lot right now, but her comments are in regards to the height of the accessory structure. They have no concerns. As for the kennel, based on the drawings of their new home and where the home will be placed on the property adjacent to the Friendship Trail, the kennel will likely not meet the requirements. If the distance between the side yard and our home is not met, our concerns lie with the excessive barking that comes along with a kennel. If there will be more than 1 or 2 dogs, that will greatly disrupt the serene quality of life we were hoping for when we choose to live in that location. For agency comments, notice was circulated on November 23rd, 2020, and as of this, as of the date of this report, no written correspondence had been received. However, we received some correspondence from them after the report. So from the region, this is from the septic department. Yeah, our department has no objections to the proposed detached shop, provided it is built in accordance to the plan submitted and no plumbing or living spaces added. And then from their planning tech, regional planning and development services staff does not object to the consent application from a provincial or regional perspective, subject to the satisfaction of any local requirements. And from the NPCA as well, at this time they have no objections to the application. Planning staff do not object to the application and recommend approval, subject to any potential conditions from the Niagara Region or Niagara Region Peninsula Conservation Authority. That minor variance application A13-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature, as the increase in height and decrease in setbacks is not anticipated to lead to any land use compatibility issues. 2, it is appropriate for development of the site since the proposed accessory building and kennel is located in a suitable location on the site and is desirable for the property. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent of the purpose of the zoning bylaw, as residential uses are permitted in the agricultural zone. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in in areas with agricultural designation. Subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner pays the minor variance fee required by the Niagara Region and that confirmation is given to the Secretary Treasurer. And 2, that the owner pays the minor variance review fee required by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and that confirmation is given to the Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. Is the applicant there? Can the applicant hear us?
Yes.
Excellent. Just before we get started, you don't wish to withdraw or defer your application?
No.
Thank you. Is there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
Just a couple things regarding the kennel application.
Depending upon what it is, it may not be under our purview to answer, but feel free to ask away and we can let you know.
Okay, it's just regarding to the location of it. The reason we did want it there is just because we were going to incorporate off the back of the garage. So there's going to be a total of 5 dogs. We have 3 dogs. We have 2 dogs that are not in the country that we would like to bring home to our property, but we can't do until we get this kennel worked out. Along the Friendship Trail, we were going to put a 6-foot wooden fence beside the shop so that people coming down back and forth on the trail couldn't see the dogs and the dogs couldn't see them. It would be a completely enclosed roof over top of it, which is as per plan that the building department has. And there was also going to be a 6-foot wooden fence on the west portion of the kennel. So it would be completely closed in so that it wouldn't interfere with people coming back and forth on the trail. That's the only reason we wanted it there, really. If we have to move it to the position that meets the setbacks, it would be in the center of our property behind our house. And there wouldn't be any fencing around it other than the chain link fencing because there would be no point of blocking it in. So the noise being carried to the neighbors isn't going to change if I move it 100 feet one way or the other, I don't believe.
Okay, thank you. Eric, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. So this kennel is for dogs that you already own? Like these aren't for breeding purposes or anything of that nature?
They are for breeding. We have
Yeah.
one litter a year. We've been doing it for 26 years now. Like I say, we don't board dogs. It's not a boarding kennel. It's only for our personal dogs that we have.
Okay, and how many dogs will there be at one maximum at one time in this kennel?
Maximum there would only be 5 dogs.
Okay. And do in the dogs that you do have, do they bark a lot, or are they noisy in your, just out of curiosity?
The breed we have, we breed Rottweiler, German Rottweilers. They don't bark unless someone is basically coming in our yard or someone's around. They're not a barky dog. Rottweilers don't bark in general. They don't sit there and bark all day long.
Okay, and one last question. So in the winter or in months where there's not a whole lot of, the trees haven't really fully gained their leaves, and being so close to the Friendship Trail, would they be disturbed by passerbys on the bikes and on the Friendship Trail? Because that is a concern. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because the fence that we plan on putting up would completely, they wouldn't even see anyone from the Friendship Trail. And in the wintertime, they're basically going to be inside in their heated kennels inside the back of the garage. So it's going to be divided up in the back side with individual pens for the dogs, so they can be inside in the winter and just left out a few times a day to do their exercise and in their kennels, and then back in.
Okay, thank you. That's all for my question now.
Thank you. Donna?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, Brian, or is it Brian or Sandy? Sandy, right?
Yeah.
So the kennel doors where they will be fenced, where the dogs can see out, will that be facing the trail, or will that be facing towards the inner portion of your property?
It will be facing the west part towards the back part of our property.
The west part. Okay, the west. Okay, I see. Okay, I thought it was going along the length of the trail, so it's going across the back.
Well, the building itself goes the length of the trail, and then the kennels would be off the back of the building.
But the actual doors would be actually west facing. Then I've got it. They would be.
Yeah,
west
they wouldn't be facing the trail. No, they'd be facing the back of our property.
And you're saying you would have a fence behind that, so they wouldn't see anyone coming up the trail from that area?
Yes, they would have a fence at the back of them and at the side, so they'd be completely enclosed, so they couldn't see anyone coming up the trail.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Eric?
Sorry, one more question. So although the dogs may not be able to see someone on the trail, what about the noises of maybe one would make running or riding a bike, or just talking in general to a friend or whomever is going down the trail? Do you think that may cause any issues?
Our dogs bark when people pull in with a vehicle in our driveway. As for people talking in that, we had a kennel at our last property, and it was close to a property line. Our dogs never really, they're not a barking dog, and they don't bark a lot, and they adapt pretty well to their surroundings.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to David. David, this being a planning matter and issues of structure and setbacks, is the idea that it's a kennel not pertinent to the application? In other words, that's covered in the agricultural zone and rules onto itself. So in other words, if this wasn't a kennel, we would still be here for the issues of height and setback, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the kennel was disregarded, the only application for minor variance that the applicant would require would be for the height of the proposed garage or shop. The kennel has its own requirements for setbacks and separation distances from dwellings. So the 3 meter setback that has been requested is part of the kennel section in our agricultural zone in our zoning bylaw.
I see that now, condition 2 and 3, right?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? We don't have anyone other than the correspondence received. Okay. With that, any final comments from the applicant?
No.
All right. Donna, I see your hand raised.
I'm sorry, through Mr. Chair, just one more question. It says a minimum distance to adjacent dwellings of 145 meters be permitted. What is the norm? Like because that's quite a distance. I'm wondering what is the difference from what is permitted and what they're asking for?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our apologies for not including that in the notice. The minimum separation distance that's normally required in the zoning bylaw is 160 meters. The applicant has requested 145 meters.
That was what I was looking. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? All right. Does someone have a recommendation for this one? Eric?
In application A13-20-PC, and in the matter of lands legally known as part of lots 21 and 22, concession 1, being part 6 on plan 59R-10301, former township of Humberstone, now city of Port Colborne, regional municipality of Niagara, located in the A agricultural zone, municipally known as 856 Lorraine Road. And that, as outlined in the planning report for the same application, that minor variance application A13-20PC be granted for the following, for the reasons stated in there, and I'll state them as follow. 1, they're minor in nature, as the increase in height and decrease in setbacks is not anticipated to lead to any land use compatibility issues. 2, appropriate for development of the site, since the proposed accessory building and kennel is located in a suitable location on the site and is desirable for the property. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as residential uses are permitted in the agricultural zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in areas with agricultural designation, and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner pays the minor variance review fee required by the Niagara region, and that confirmation is given to the Secretary Treasurer. 2, that the owner pays the minor variance review fee required by the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, and that confirmation is given to the Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. Seconder. Angie, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Donna, just for confirmation, you're in favor? Yes, thank you. All right, there is a 20-day waiting period for that, and just be advised of those 2 fees that still have to be paid to the Niagara Region and the Conservation Authority.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to other business. We have the schedule for next year. Does anyone have any questions regarding the schedule? Pretty standard, the second Tuesday of every month. I think there's only one day next year where it moves to a Wednesday. I can't remember what month it was, but
yeah.
So with that, Gary?
When was that sent out? Because I don't recall getting it.
It was part of our package at the very end.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, and all of those attachments. Sorry, I can't raise it up on my computer right now. When we get off that, I got a computer job to do here.
Andy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I just, there is an opportunity for the city to go to Tuesday night council meetings. I've heard that talked about. If that were to come to be, would we just switch to Wednesday night for Committee of Adjustment? Or would we just do the alternate week?
I think council should switch to Wednesday night.
Okay, then. Whatever.
I think that's
doesn't
fair.
really matter to me. I just, as long as we don't have meet on Monday nights, which is crazy because of all the holidays involved, it just makes no sense. So yeah, works for me.
Like I said, I guess we'll have to cross that bridge, but I see
Okay.
Gary, you got your hand up?
Well, now that Andy's brought it up, if we do, I kind of like, having some consistencies now and blotting my Tuesdays out instead of a Monday and 2 Tuesdays. I like the alternate week Tuesday. And then I sort of reserved Tuesday for the city and not for us.
Thank you, Gary. That's really what I was aiming at. Just to kind of plant that seed for everyone that we may have that decision to make. And if we do, that, we might want to think about what do we prefer.
Well, the other alternative could be if we move to a different night of the week, so it doesn't conflict, to like Wednesdays or something.
Yeah, it is. It's just, I'm thinking it would be nice, like Gary said, to just, for us anyway, to have Tuesday nights blocked out would be wonderful.
Eric?
Yeah, my only comment is as long as it's not on, for me, because I'm on the museum committee, they meet every third Tuesday of the month. So that's my issue.
So if we move,
so this would have to go to the second Tuesday if that were the case.
Which we are the second Tuesday right now.
Sorry, this would have to go to the first Tuesday because council would be the second and fourth. Yeah. All right. So just so we know.
So what's the suggestion? Is to move to the first Tuesday of every month, so that way council has the second, third, and fourth?
The council only meets on the second and the fourth.
Okay.
So that would be there. Eric has a requirement to be at the museum board on the third Tuesday. So it leaves the fourth Tuesday, or the first Tuesday rather, open. But I'm sure that's something that could be discussed as we go further, and it will depend on whether the clerk goes forward with changing the council schedule. So
okay,
they're just talking about it at this point.
Yeah, they should just be notes.
Yeah,
well,
I just kind of put it in everybody's head. That's all.
Yeah, I guess from our standpoint, the biggest concern is just the notice period. So when staff knows when the kind of the cutoff date is for taking applications, to make sure they can get their stuff together in time and the signs go out appropriately. If it's fine with you guys now, we can leave it as it is. It would have to stay that way, obviously, for January and possibly February. But if council does deem to move to this to the Tuesdays, we could shift it to the first Monday. I don't know if that would give enough time, if we brought it forward at our January meeting, if that would give enough time for February to move that.
I'm sure that this could all get worked out. I don't think there's a big rush in councils moving those dates. I would expect that if we saw that happen, it would probably be almost April before that came about.
Oh, so just like the ditches.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I know.
Gary?
Just on another matter, I like, sorry I wasn't able to do it tonight with not having my everything on, which I had everything on the big screen here. I was wondering if there would be a possibility, not for us all moving about as to what part of the recommendations now to read. I really like the more condensed version than the repetitiveness we've done for me, 16 years, or most of it. I'm just wondering, though, if staff could either embolden or highlight what the shortened version could be. So then we aren't questioning which does and doesn't have to be read. In other words, it would already be there in the resolution as to the short form. David or Chris, I don't know if that's possible.
They're both pondering there. They don't really want to answer you, Gary.
I can't really quite see him that good, so in the checkerboard here.
Could you repeat the premise of that question, Gary?
He's just asking that when you put the resolution together, if you could just highlight the area that needs to be read.
Tonight and last month, we're shortening which portion of the resolution is read aloud. And so I was just wondering, because we're extracting that from the resolution that you provided, rather than to extract it, just bolden that or color it over, paint it over, so highlight it, so that that's what we read.
We can certainly arrange for that next month for sure.
Great.
Cool. So with that, okay. So with that, with the schedule, if everyone's good, we'll leave it as it is now. So it's the second Tuesday of every month, but keeping in mind that maybe come January, February, we'll move it to the first Tuesday of each month. That doesn't, I don't think, conflicts with anything that I have either. So I don't have an issue with that. So if you want to that works with council, moving stuff around, that'll help us, because then I don't think we would have to move any meetings then to the Wednesday because of
Right.
any
That's
conflict
right.
with any council.
That's
meeting.
right.
So with that, can I have a mover and a seconder for the proposed right now is every second Tuesday? Eric, Donna, all in favor? Opposed?
No, every first Tuesday.
No, we're every
Every first,
second
yeah,
Tuesday
first.
for now.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
now.
So right now, as it's presented right now, is every second Tuesday as we currently have it. But we could, if we need to, move it to the first Tuesday. But like I said, that would have to come to the committee at the start, so that way we can set the dates of getting applications in. All right. The next, does anyone else have any other business?
Did we all vote on that?
On what, other business or?
No, the last one. Did we all vote? I don't know. We were about to vote.
the second
and then-
Tuesday.
The schedule, yeah, I got everyone voted on
Oh, okay.
in the
Just making
affirmative
sure.
for the second Tuesday of every month for now. Okay. And then the other is the minutes of the meeting of the November 10th meeting. A mover and a seconder for that, Gary.
Mr.
Second.
Chair, I just had another new business.
Okay,
Well, the new business is sort of about the old business, and that was Eric's updated version of what the Committee of Adjustment could now be charged with, those other duties. I'm just wondering if there's been any movement, other staff-wise, or Eric, or both.
I think David's got some comments for us.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Bruno. I did have an internal discussion with Sherry Hansen in Bylaw about the fence variances and other minor bylaw variances that are typically going to council at this time. Sherry is also in the process of updating those bylaws, as I believe they're getting outdated. So in that review process of those bylaws, Sherry, from what I understand, is proposing to have them as delegated to staff to approve, to save them going to council for these relatively minor variances. So if that does go ahead that way, then we wouldn't have to worry about it on this committee either, which from staff's opinion would be nice, because it's a lot of extra paperwork and other files to deal with at the same time. And if it happened on a night like tonight where we had 8 or 9 applications, it would be tough to manage, and we'd probably be here till midnight. So I'll leave it there.
Good, thank you.
But ultimately, that's a council decision, though, right?
Yep, that's correct, yes. All right, any other new business? Going once, going twice, okay. Minutes of the November 10th meeting, a mover and a seconder. Eric, Angie, questions, comments, all in favor? Opposed, it'll be carried. So with that, since this is our last meeting of the year, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and be safe out there, and we'll see you in the new year.
To you too.
Thank you, Dad. Same to you.
Yeah.
All right,
Merry Christmas, David.
motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm in.
Eric, all in favor? Be carried. Thank you.
Jump right on that one.